Hi everyone, this is Ali. I'm doing my hopefully first of many of Ask Ali, which is where you guys are going to ask me stuff about comics or superheroes or whatever. First question came, funnily enough, from Dylanosaurus Rex. He asked, Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel the same person? So I'm going to answer that one. Like many things in comics, it's actually a lot more complex than it sounds. In honour of the question today, I'm wearing my Miss Marvel jumper, which is amazing. And I will try to answer it succinctly, but if you've met me, you know I'm probably going to go off on tangents and shit. So the first thing that makes it a little bit complex is that DC and Marvel have both had characters named Captain Marvel. I'll start with DC. So the character that most people associate with DC's Captain Marvel started out in 1940s, is bulk popular, like more popular than Superman, but not actually published by DC then, was published by Fawcett. So even though he was more popular than Superman, some people could argue, and successfully did argue, that he was a rip-off of Superman. So before that happened, Fawcett, made this wider universe with him. They had Mary Marvel and they had Captain Marvel Jr. and they both had his powers. So then, in like early 50s, DC were like, no, we don't like you making money off this. He's basically Superman. You got to stop publishing him. So they did that. They successfully stopped them from publishing it. I guess when I say that he was bigger than Superman and they said it's a rip-off of Superman, the thing to keep in mind is that the reason that Captain Marvel is different to Superman is one, that his powers come from magic, and that he says a magic word and he becomes Captain Marvel. So when I say he, I'm talking about Billy Batson. So Billy Batson is a 12-year-old boy who gets these magic powers. Won't get into the whole thing, but when he says Shazam, that's when he becomes Captain Marvel. This will become relevant. Okay, so the thing there is that he's actually vulnerable a lot of the time. He's just a 12-year-old kid a lot of the time when he doesn't say the magic word. So in like the 70s, I want to say 70s, fucking, if you've got an issue with it, look it up, tell me I'm wrong. In the 70s, DC were like, hang on, that guy was bulk profitable, why aren't we selling his comics? So then they started selling Captain Marvel comics as well. So the problem with that was that in that time frame, in between when they'd stopped Fawcett from publishing it and when they started publishing it, Marvel were like, hang on, we're Marvel, Captain Marvel, we'll start publishing Captain Marvel as well. So DC, once they started publishing him, weren't actually allowed to call him Captain Marvel. Like, they could call the character that, but they couldn't advertise it as that. So they would advertise it as Shazam. The comic was called Shazam and Isis, I think, or Adventures of Shazam and Isis, something like that. And that's how it got advertised for years. And most people, and there was a lot of media with it, most people just called the character Shazam anyway, even though his name really was Captain Marvel. So in 2011, DC decided to reboot their whole comics continuity. And so by that I mean they brought back characters that had been dead. There was a character who was paralysed who then became able-bodied. She'd never recovered from that injury previously, but they changed her storyline. I'm talking about Batgirl there. And people's backgrounds and stuff changed as well. For example, Wonder Woman's whole background changed in a way that pissed me off, and I'm frankly still holding some rage from that for about 4 years. Anyway, one of the other changes that they made was that they actually named the character Shazam. The character is not called Captain Marvel anymore, but there is sometimes that confusion with that. So DC no longer has a character named Captain Marvel. They have Shazam. Billy Batson says Shazam and becomes Shazam. And I think the reason that they made that change is because DC have started using Shazam in a lot more of their animated movies, so that they can use it without having to conflict with Marvel, who are obviously going to be using their Captain Marvel in the cinematic universe. Little plug, just while I can do it, is DC make awesome animated movies for grown-ups as well. This is Throne of Atlantis. See, it's rated M. It's for grown-ups, I promise. Like, I say the F word and stuff. They don't say the F word because it's DC. This is Justice League, The New Frontier. This is amazing. This is one of my favourite ones because it has an excellent example of Wonder Woman. She's taller than Superman because she fucking should be taller than Superman, and she's just a badass. Anyway, rated M. There's some other really good ones too. The Flashpoint Paradox is really good. There's a Wonder Woman movie too. I've got that DVD as well, but I'm sure I'll bring that up at another time. Really good. Really recommend them to people that are getting into comics. So That's DC. So onto Marvel. Marvel's Captain Marvel is actually probably even more confusing than DC's Captain Marvel. I'm sorry, I didn't write it. So in between when Fawcett stopped publishing Captain Marvel and DC started publishing Captain Marvel, Marvel, as we said, decided, yeah, this is a good idea. Let's have a Captain Marvel comic. So the thing to remember with this kind of stuff is that in order to maintain copyright, they have to keep producing like original stories about these characters, otherwise they'll lose that exclusivity and that ability to just like own the character. And that is why, as a sidebar, that is why Sony keeps churning out those terrible Spider-Man movies and reboots it even once it's successful. Like, I think Andrew Garfield was a great Spider-Man and they should have just kept going with that. But they have to keep rebooting it because otherwise Marvel will take back the ownership. Anyway, sidebar. So the reason that that's relevant is because there have been a shitload of Captain Marvels, because there were changes in the character and then they made other Captain Marvels. So I don't know all the history of all the Captain Marvels. I'm just going to take you through really quickly some bits and pieces. And I will get to Miss Marvel. I'm getting there. So the first Captain Marvel was actually a Kree military officer, so like an alien military officer named Marvel. And so an actual captain. So that's why he's called Captain Marvel, as opposed to, say, hypothetically, some other captains that we know that were just fucking privates and then became captains somehow, Steve Rogers, Captain Marvel, he is like I said, he's an alien, basically gets sent down to hurt us, but takes our side and then ends up being like, you know, a defender of Earth. I'm not going to get into the whole thing because we'll be here all night, but like amazing cosmic powers, and then he dies of cancer. I'm not going to put a spoiler alert for something that happened decades ago. Okay, so then after that, after Captain Marvel, there are like quite a few different Captain Marvels after that point. So there was Monica Rambeau, it's spelled a Frenchy way. I'm going to like figure out how to edit that. I'll put the text down the bottom. Not like Rambo. She's a cop from New Orleans. Also a person of colour, which was pretty exciting in comics and obviously a big deal back in the day. Then there was Gina Svell and Phyla Vell. I don't know anything about them. I'm not going to look them up. Like, I looked at their Wikipedia page. I don't really give a shit, to be honest. They're Marvel's kids. They end up being Captain Marvel. They all have the same powers. And then there's someone, I'm sorry, I've got to look at my phone because I don't know how to say this. Kanar and Nova. Don't know who they are. Didn't even look at their Wikipedia pages. Don't care. The point is, as I said, they kind of need to keep putting out Captain Marvel stuff so they can maintain the copyright, and sometimes that's what we see in comics. So I don't want to like badmouth those characters. Maybe they're people's favourite versions of that, but they're just not the ones that I have ever read or have any understanding of, and I don't want to fake it. So I'm going to take you on a little tangent, but I promise it'll be relevant. So in the 70s, with Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, like Marvel, there's an accident and there's a female Air Force officer with him when he and she gets exposed to his powers. Of course she gets exposed to his powers and takes on the powers, as opposed to it, you know, killing her tragically. So her name is Carol Danvers. So she becomes Miss Marvel, or Ms. Marvel, because it's the 70s. So she's got all these powers, a much sluttier costume though. So for years, for like 40 years, she's Ms. Marvel. There are some other Ms. Marvels, of course. We'll get into that. But so she has that. So then anyway, and she's close to his character too in the continuity. She's close to Captain Marvel's character. Then when he dies, she decides that she will take on the mantle of Captain Marvel. So this actually happened in, I want to say 2012. Once again, if I'm wrong, just tell me. I'm not going to get like worked up about it. So she takes on the mantle of Captain Marvel. When she becomes Captain Marvel, she becomes a much better costume. When this happened, they were like, fanboys were like so angry about it, because how dare Miss Marvel do that? Who is she? Meh, meh, meh. For a start, I would say, hey, at least she was actually a captain. Like, at least she had real rank. Yes, obviously this is a bugbear of mine. The other thing is, if it bothers you, get the fuck over it. Because Captain America was the one that was like, yep, Marvel would have wanted it. And if Captain America is ever wrong, then I don't want to live on this planet anymore. So she's Captain Marvel now, and she is just killing it. maybe I may be a little bit egocentric in why I like her so much. What I would say is, if you know me personally, Captain Marvel is like what would happen if I suddenly got superpowers tomorrow. So she is, she is a real human. She gets fiery about stuff and she makes poor choices, and sometimes she trusts the wrong people. And the reason I use that comparison is, say, compared to Wonder Woman, who, as we know, I love Wonder Woman. She's like my idol. She's my girl. But Wonder Woman is like beyond reproach in many ways, whereas Carol Danvers is, she's like a real person, and she does the stuff that a real person would do, and she polices the galaxy also. She's also like an uber nerd. She has a cat named Chewie, named after Chewbacca in Star Wars. She's just cool. I really recommend that comic. Guys and girls, I recommend that. Just because it's a chick doesn't mean the guys can't follow that comic. And if you like Guardians of the Galaxy, she does a lot of stuff with Guardians of the Galaxy. So just a little plug there. These are just some trades of her comics, a few that I have, some I have on my e-reader. Yeah, this is the first one, so if you want to get into it, I really recommend it, In Pursuit of Flight. It has the first 6 issues of the comics, so you can actually have like the whole story. If you like getting into comics, don't buy the single issues, they're like $4 each. Just buy one of these, they're like $20, you get the whole story. So as you can see, much better outfit, much more aerodynamic. I really like it. And amazing hair and really cool artwork in here. That's just a random page I've flicked to. That's not like necessarily the best artwork in there. It's just really cool. I said guys and girls. I do actually really recommend it for women, though. I really think it's a good comic for girls to get into. Captain Carol Danvers is the current Captain Marvel, and she's killing it. But to answer that question of are Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel the same person? Yes, in the sense that the current Captain Marvel used to be Miss Marvel. There were some other Miss Marvels after that, but the current Miss Marvel, who started in 2014, is actually a 16-year-old girl. She's Pakistani American and she's Muslim, which is the first time that a Muslim character has headlined a Marvel book, which is like a big deal. You'll see that everywhere. You'll see that line everywhere, and it's like burning my psyche, because anytime you read anything about this chick, that's what it says. But it's because it's a big deal. I actually don't follow that comic. It's a good comic. It's won tons of awards. It's just not really the kind of comics that I like, but I would actually really rate it for I guess young, like teenage girls getting into comics, or people that don't like all the intergalactic stuff. Obviously she has these amazing powers, but the comic is really about her dealing with the powers, dealing with shit with her family, and she's like, once again, to use the cliche, she's Muslim in post 9/11 America, and that's got its own implications, especially with the powers she has. And so yeah, it's just a really good book, and I do really recommend it. I don't read it, but I have read it. I don't follow it anymore, just because it's not really my style. But I own heaps of comics, so I'm allowed to make that decision. The other thing that I like about that book, that character's called Kamala Khan. I know I'm mispronouncing that. Is you can just jump straight in with it. So for people that haven't been following the whole Marvel continuity, it doesn't matter. All you need to know is that there's this character named Captain Marvel who this girl really looks up to, and then she ends up with the powers. That's really all you need to know, and the comic will take care of that itself. So it is a good jumping in point, because a lot of people have that thought of like, oh fuck, comics have this whole history and where do you start? Well, the book came out last year. There's not that many of them. It's an awesome, honestly a really good place to start. So, long story, many tangents, really short. This is Shazam, who used to be DC's Captain Marvel. This is the old Captain Marvel that most people think of when they talk about Captain Marvel. And this is the old Miss Marvel, who's now been promoted to Captain Marvel and is killing it in her own book. And this is the current Miss Marvel, who has her own book as well, still currently running.